generous relocation loans that will allow them to build a better life for themselves and their families elsewhere. And before anyone says they won't accept it, I've done a survey, a real genuine survey with a prestigious polling company from Israel in cooperation with the Palestinian Survey Institute, and we found that only 15% would, in the poll, without being offered, 15% stated that they would reject the offer under any circumstances. Over 70% mentioned some kind of material inducement, like better job, better education, better housing, that would convince them to emigrate permanently. Now, I'm not saying that's etched in stone, but that's much more convincing than someone saying, well, they'll never leave because they're waving keys for non-existent buildings in Beirut. Okay, so that's what I'm suggesting. To depoliticize the situation, to stop viewing it as a political problem but as a humanitarian problem, and to atomize the situation. This will have huge beneficial effects for the individual recipients. It would be affordable compared to any other alternative. And by the way, would benefit hugely the host countries who would accept the Palestinians. Let me give you an unrealistic but illustrated example. If all the Palestinians decided they wanted to go to Indonesia, and Indonesia, the biggest Muslim country in the world, and the Indonesians decided they would accept them, what would be the end result of this? Every single breadwinner, it would increase about 1% of the Indonesian population, certainly less than 2%, even if you take a high end of the estimate of the Palestinian population. Every single Palestinian breadwinner would be arriving almost a century of GNP per capita in his pocket, in Indonesian terms, equivalent to a family head arriving at the gates of America with over $2 million. And the Indonesian economy would get the influx of anything between $100 and $200 billion into the private sector. Sounds like win-win to me.
What's wrong with that?
I can't hear every word, but I'm confused. When the former defense minister says that there should be a Palestine basically established, handed over in the West Bank as soon as possible, Mark says that's a political statement. But when he says, but when he says that we will make the issue of the Palestinians and the conflict, we will depoliticize that by this plan, I don't understand how those two things go together. The Palestinians, look, if you want to take a tour of the West Bank, you'll see more than I've seen. I've seen a little bit. But if you want to talk about the humanitarian issue, about the Palestinians, to say that we will serve them best by giving them money to move to another place where they've never lived, is like saying to the Jews, well, you know, it would help the Palestinians if Israel would just have a lot less Jews. So we'll give you money and maybe move to Los Angeles or elsewhere. You can't make this problem go away. You can't buy it away. You can't make the people stop believing that they have a right to where they live. You can't make Israel believe that, and you can't make the Palestinians believe that. However many leave will not dissipate or make go away the issue of the political demands and desires that are mainly legitimate of the Palestinians. What are you going to do the next day? What are you going to do the day after? It doesn't make any sense.
All right, those of you who have written questions, I don't know, Dahlia. Okay, will you please go around and collect them now? Let's get to an issue that I knew could not be dispatched in one sentence.
In fact, the only buildings that they didn't demolish were the synagogues which the Palestinians did. In their usual expression of leniency and liberalism and pluralism. Every single settlement was razed to the ground. And how much peace did that bring? If you want that as a microphone, the settlements are not a reason, the settlements are an excuse. And the people who funded them, the allegedly pro-Israel people who use that as an excuse are at best useful idiots.
At least you said I was useful. Settlements were placed by Sharon and others precisely...
Not true. Not
You
true.
know, Martin, you've got to let him finish. I promise I'll get back to you. Go ahead.
Were placed by Sharon and others precisely in order to prevent the emergence of a coherent Palestinian state. Now, the policy of Israel was to have a settlement policy. It wasn't coherent all the time. There were reasons why Jews wanted to move back into areas that had religious significance. In fact, the irony of it all is that the true biblical significance area for the Jews is the West Bank, Judea, Samaria, not necessarily Tel Aviv. But the modern Jewish state is where it is. And the policy of the Israeli government to build settlements to prevent Palestinian nationalism as a defense against that, fine. But that is no longer the case. And Ariel Sharon knew that, and now anybody that wants to look at Israel's security knows that. And to say that putting settlements and continuing and building is not a factor is blind.